talked about extraoral projections, and so
Okay. We talked about extraoral projections. Wonderful. At least you remember that one. Good. Okay. Ashley,
Yes.
anything you want to add?
I mean, there are certain lines like the sex or so.
Very good. Future orthodontist. Okay. Okay. So what is the basic difference between MRI T1 and T2?
for soft tissue.
MRI is for soft tissue. Let's put it that way.
So it's lighter, I think.
So what do you use the terminology?
You know what you used to say the MRI?
No, we take MRI machine to take MRI. No, that's not my question.
So that was the one where it said the
Yes.
the white is the high signal intensity.
Okay. Very good. Where do you see that high signal intensity? In T1 or T2? So, in T2 there will be a very high signal intensity, right? So that means you are going to see like a white. So if there is any pathology that you want to detect, then you are going to use MRI T2. Okay. The question is, okay, so as a dentist, why the hell you care, right, about MRI? That's your next question, right? Say for example, you are going to treat a person with temporomandibular joint disorders, right? You had a session, did you finish TMJ? Yes or no? Not really. Okay. So basically you have the auricular eminence and then the condyle which sits here like this, and in between there is a disc. So if you want to evaluate that part of disc, because it's a soft tissue, you have to use MRI. And if there is anything problematic with that disc, like for example, if there is fluid film in that region, then you may have to use MRI. Then you should know what to order as a general dentist, right? MRI, T1, T2, proton density, all those things. So at least you should have some basic knowledge. So now, how do you differentiate the soft tissue window versus bone window? In CT scan, we don't have T1, T2 language, only in MRI. So the language that we use is soft tissue window and bone window. So how many of you guys are future oral surgeons here? One? Only one? That's a big lie. Only one? Oh my God, this is two, yeah, that's three. Then you should know about bone, soft tissue window, bone window, MRI. So any other questions from previous lectures? Yes.
Not about previous lecture, but what if you miss the radiology rotation due to surgery? Are you going to
So what if you miss a radiology rotation, like something happened not last week, last before week? So we'll try to accommodate you. You may have to talk to Sue, the person, dental assistant in our department, so she will arrange some time for you. The most preferable time would be Fridays, between 3 and 5 p.m. Usually on Fridays I'm not here, so. But you have a set of cadre to help you guys, yes,
So is that like an individual effort or is it a whole group?
as a whole group. Okay, any other questions? No other questions, okay. So you guys are happy with your midterm results, right? No, okay, even I'm not happy then, okay. So that means we have to work hard. You know, we have only few sessions that are left out now. We're going to finish the semester. Short and sweet journey, I think, at least sweet, maybe. Or at least short or sour, whatever you guys think. Now, this part, our first part of our lecture would be a lot of repetition that we may have talked earlier. So, but we need to emphasize a few more things or reiterate the facts. Okay. So when we talk about image quality, we want the image to look diagnostic. That's what we are talking about. So what are the few things that we do to get that? So one, we talked about the focal spot, source to object distance and object to receptor distance. And we also talked about parallel things. So again, reiterating the facts. If you have a smaller focal spot size, then what happens?
You get a clearer image. You get a clearer image.
Image, okay. So smaller focal spot is good for pretty image, right? Or we can get a good contact. So you need to have a good image for diagnostic purposes. So here is a difference between a large focal spot versus small focal spot. Can you identify differences between just looking at these two? Do you mind dimming the lights? Because with radiology, you have to have like yeah. This is two extremes. Hey, the weather is really bad and it's cold outside. People are going to sleep on me. Oh.
There's controls over there.
Okay. So you can clearly see the difference. Smaller focal spot will have a good image. So now, source to object distance. So what do you understand by that? Source to object distance. Yes, right.
The distance from the exit of the X-ray to whatever it's hitting.
So object is in this case is 2. So it should be long or short?
Long.
Long.
But then the receptor should be this.
No, that we're just talking one by one, piece by piece, so that you won't get confused. I mean,
The distance from the source needs to be long enough, so
Why?
you don't have the entire face like covered by the rays if you have the source closer to the patient.
what is going to happen?
If it's
If
too
it's
close,
shorter.
if it's too close,
Uh-huh.
I believe you expose the patient to the rays.
Yes, okay. Yes.
You also get more magnification if it was too close.
See, basically you'll get a lot of scatter because you don't want the unnecessary tissues to be exposed, right? So remember I gave you an analogy, right? The traffic in India versus US. Remember? Or you forgot? So going in a haphazard direction. So that's what is going to happen if you have a shorter cone or shorter distance. So if it's longer, so you're streamlining or telling the X-rays to go in a straight fashion. Okay. And this is the problem. Like here, you can compare this image versus this. So if you increase the distance, basically magnification is going to happen. That's the problem. Although I gave you the analogy, this is exactly what is going to happen. So what is the problem with this, by doing this? Clinically. Any future endodontists? You? No? Okay. No future endodontists here? Oh my God, you guys are shy. Undecided. That's fair. Or pretend somebody wants to become endodontist. Yes?
So you get not a realistic I'm trying to say.
Yes, so if you,
the size of the the distance isn't right.
the working length may be skewed, right? So if the tooth size is 10 millimeters, so if you're taking this kind of image, then you get 12 millimeters, then you got a bunch of 12 millimeters and put it there, it's beyond the apex. Okay? So now, we talked about the first part, right? The second part is from object to the receptor. What should you do here?
Short
Shorter, why?
magnification.
Magnification again. So here is an example that demonstrates if you have a distance too much, then 18.7 versus 20.2 centimeters. So, although this image is an exaggerated form of skull that I am trying to display, for us, because we are dealing with teeth, like 10 to 12 millimeters, even 1 or 2 millimeters, it's going to skew our dimensions, Or, for example, you guys are familiar with the apicoectomy technique? Apicoectomy. Say for example, Meena does the endo procedure without following the protocol, right? He'll use a short bone and he'll put the gutta percha 12, and he'll send the case to Andrea because she's endodontist, because he messed up, right? Then she needs to know where exactly that is, right? So if you put the object and the receptor, if it's not too close, then even she can mess up where to drill the bone, right? Because she has to take out the extra gutta percha point from there. Right, Meena?
Yes.
Okay. So like here, this is an example. Again, there could be some exceptions, right? If there is a very shallow palate, then we do not have choice, right? Then in that scenario, you may have to place the receptor like here in the midline region. So that's the best for that particular scenario. But you try to place as much as close to the teeth. So that's the difference. And we talked about this again. Everything has to be parallel, right? Otherwise we are going to get overlap or contacts will be closed. And you may have encountered this, right? You place, so imagine this is a tooth structure here, and you place the receptor inside the oral cavity. As soon as you ask the patient to close, in our case, the skull, the sensor will move, right? Some of you guys experienced. So that is also a problem. So please make sure that it is stable in the oral cavity. We talked about this one. Okay. Few things. Like here, if you change the angulation, you can make the tooth appear smaller or elongated. Again, make sure that you follow appropriate protocols so that you don't end up getting a foreshortening or elongation. If the tooth is becoming shorter like this, we call that as foreshortening. If you are elongating the tooth, it's the elongation. And sometimes if you want to see how much of magnification is there, this is the formula that we use. Size of the image divided by size of the object, then you get how much amount of magnification. This, I'm not going to ask you for your exam, but when you try to place an implant, right? If there is an elongation, if you want to see if there is elongation or magnification, you use this formula. Again, this is not only for your passing your exam here, but this will be helpful for your future as well. So certain slides. And we talked about paralleling technique. Paralleling technique is the ideal, so make sure that everything is parallel when you place or when you put the object, the sensor, everything has to be parallel. Yeah, bisecting angle you could use if the paralleling technique is a failure or you cannot achieve. Like, for example, if there is a toric, mandibular toric, or palatal toric, then in that scenario, we could use bisecting angle. And generally, I don't recommend using because it has got a lot of flaws. We talked about bisecting, paralleling, okay. Talked about this one. So when I said that there are some flaws with the bisecting, you can see the information here, and ADA, that's American Dental Association, recommends that we use paralleling technique only. So some of the recommendations are like, let me give you an example. When we go to the restrooms, any in a hotel or restaurant or somewhere, it says all employees must wash hands before they go to their workplace, right? What about others? So that means they can walk away without washing hands. So the guidelines are something like that, you know? So we do recommend you use these things. It is helpful. And we don't have any enforcing bodies to come and check, you know. So if I ask you, what are the things that you learned from that previous lecture? 9 points. Starting from timeout.
First question.
Oh my God. The question is, can you tell me 1 point that you learned from the previous lecture? I'll give you a chance.
The smaller the focal font size, the clearer the.
Okay. Yes, right. Okay. Yes.
If the sensor is tilted, we can get foreshortening or elongation.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
If you're replacing using sensor, if you want to check it,
Can you talk a little louder so that Rama can note the information and she can disseminate to all the students?
if you're placing an implant, to check it, you can use the magnification formula, which is size of the image over the size of the object.
Okay. Yeah, you raised your hand, right?
Yeah, I just can't really see.
Oh,
I want to maximize the.
Okay, then I'll try to stand here.
Okay.
One of the reason I walk here is I can get steps,
Yeah, that's good.
right? Unknowingly I get like 6,000 steps as soon as I finish my class, so which is a good thing. Then I have to compensate for 10 or 4,000 steps. It's easier, right? So, and you're telling me not to move, then it's a problem for me. But I'll still move, okay? Yes? Yes, Meena, oh.
Smaller focal spot is better.
Hey, you just copied your friend.
Oh, did I? I didn't hear. Okay, I got another one.
Okay.
Object to distance, no, source to object distance long,
Uh-huh.
and then object, and then object to the other distance is short.
Receptor.
Yes. Wow, you got lots of friends, man.
Awesome.
Who are willing to help. Okay. Then? That's it? Yeah.
The reason for that is, the reason you want it at those distances is to reduce the scatter and radiation to the patient.
Very good. Yes.
So the ADA recommends to use the paralleling technique, and we should use the bisecting technique if you have like a tori, or if the paralleling technique is harder to achieve.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
MRIs for soft tissue.
Wow. You made my day. Yeah.
I just confused myself. Okay, so if the object to source distance is long, doesn't that increase scatter?
So, here. Good question. See, all the way you are increasing the tube length as well, right? You're not taking off the tube length like this. You're not cutting off. By putting this tube longer, you're telling the X-rays to move in one direction. So that means the area of exposure is only limited, unlike here. If you have a round collimator, imagine this is the round collimator, right?
Right.
The area that is being exposed is so much. Whereas as soon as you put that plastic, you're reducing. So only this much area is being exposed. So less scatter. Because less amount of soft tissue is being exposed.
Right, but if that beam is collimated regardless, whether it's 15 inches away or 25 inches away, what's the difference?
So you, good question.
Or 5
So-
inches for that matter.
So they did studies. Again, I'm not going to the literature review or because I don't want you guys to be radiologists, right? Technically. So they looked at different lengths,
Okay.
and they came up with 6 and 12 inches. That's the standards. They said this is the best one. Not going into the previous literature. Yeah. They put cameras, to look where the X-rays are coming, and they spotted those things, and they decided. Yeah. Okay. Oh, 2 more, right? Heather or Mallory? Yeah,
Mallory.
Mallory. Okay.
Oh, what's up?
You want to add?
No,
Or you want to enlighten us?
No, Nisha had a great one. That was mine.
Okay. Madeline. Come on, 1. We'll move on with the digital imaging. You can take help from Meena. He is.
Nina's talked so much.
I know. Thank you.
If you start so much, you should tell only one thing.
A lot of it was you from what we've talked about before.
That's good. Okay, we'll stop there. Okay. Okay. We are called you, like especially not me. Your generation is called as digital or digital generation people, right? So, with that being said, so what are the innovations that were made in dentistry that you could use in day-to-day life?
I don't think I understand the question.
Oh, there was no question. You guys are
Oh,
born as a digital owners or digital world people. So what the innovations that we are having in dentistry, that's what we are doing. Okay, so this is the chapter, and again, depending on the textbook that you guys have, if you're using 7th edition, chapter 7, if you're using 8, then it's a different. As you can see here, Dr. Ludlow and Andre Moe, so they were my teachers during my residency program. Huh. So live, this is an example of some student, I'm not going to name. So imagine, if you guys are feeling so much of pain, how much I should feel. So this is considered as a full mouth series. And they submit this for competence. One of the reasons I'm putting this here is, please don't waste your time and my time by submitting this as a competence. We use certain criteria, right? And we talked about the criteria, what is that we have to follow. For instance, look at this. How should I look?
Well, there's the wrong teeth for one thing.
Yeah. So now you understand mounting, why it is so pretty. Right? Now, what is the problem with this particular thing? One student, louder, please.
Put on the wrong, the sensor the wrong way, right? Because you can even see like part of the little fingers was attached to.
So when you compare with this and this, only I'm talking about the contrast or density only. What is the difference between this and this?
It's darker.
Which one do you think is better compared to this or this?
Right.
Right.
The one on the right.
Right.
Our right.
You're
Oh,
alive.
oh, okay, okay. That's what. Okay. This looks better, right?
Yeah.
What could have happened here?
It's probably too low.
Yeah, overexposed.
Yes.
But
So, go ahead, go ahead.
how does that happen if it's preset how long? All you do is press the button and you just insert. How do you hold it for longer? You shouldn't be able to do that, right?
If it increase the time on the machine, it just.
Oh, okay.
So, before I give my answer, what do you see here? What is the problematic thing that you have noticed in those two images? Of course, those two are two different things that are happening. Let's talk one by one. And today's lecture, that's what we are going to work or try to get or understand the basics behind digital print. So let's talk about my left, this image. So let's zoom. Yeah. Yes,
The
actually.
receptor is not in the mouth, you're taking an exposure of the back of the receptor.
Can you speak a little louder so that everybody at drama can make a note?
The receptor is not in the mouth and you're taking an image of just the back of the receptor.
Yes. Right? And the other thing is that even receptor is facing correctly or not.
Oh, so it's about.
Yeah, see? The receptor has to be the patient's mouth first. It's outside. Second thing, there is a white thing that is the, and there is a black. Two sides, right? The sensor has got like Say for instance, this is white. Imagine this is white and this is black. So the white portion is the active area. So if X-rays are being bombarded to that white region, it's going to take image. If you bombard to the black, you're not going to get anything because there are chips and wires on that side. Okay? And people have done this. So again, my sincere request, I know it is a dental school. By the time you reach a dental clinic, you may have forgotten many things. So that does not preclude you guys to review the material and come to the class or when you're in clinics, right? Please review the material before you come and take your seats. Okay. Okay, so now here, what has happened with that particular image? What is the main problem? We talked about image quality analysis, right? Remember? Way back. Maybe third class? What are those little dots that you are seeing? Black, black, like here. Nice. Wonderful. Excellent. I'm very happy. Okay. So now, so that means the receptor did not receive enough photons, right? That is called as photon starvation. So what could have caused is either the sensor was not placed properly, so that's why you are getting a cone cut here, huge cone cut. And because of that, you're seeing a lot of noise. So when you place X-ray instruments, please understand the protocol. It has to be in the oral cavity, it has to be parallel, okay? And you have to use a bright time, okay? One of the disadvantages of digital dentistry is if you don't pay attention to the time, then you could use more time, but you get a pretty good image still. It's because of the computer processes everything. So now, what is a digital image? That's the first thing we'll start. What are the different types of detectors that are available in the market? We will spend very briefly how they work. Okay, I'm not going to bombard too much on that, but just what is the basic physics behind it. And are there any other tools that we can make use of to make the image better or not? So basically, how many of you use computers? This is a dumb question, but I'm still going to ask. Okay. Yes. That's all? You don't use computers? Of course, right? So now, let me ask you this question. Who has got more physics background? Don't tell that you guys don't have physics background. No? Okay. Yes. What's your name? Heather. Bethany. Okay. So let's start with Heather. Okay. What do you understand by bit?
I think that's a computer science thing.
So what you're telling me is that I have to go, all we have to go to computer class to learn. Right?
Smallest unit of storage.
Hey, think I'm the most dumbest student. Can you refine it a little more?
So it's a storage unit, right? You store an image in like numbers so that like any other computer screen can display the same image.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No.
So like, how do you use every computer screen to display the same image? You can't just, you have to store the image into something, right?
Really?
So then you transfer into like a storage unit. Which is
Okay. Bethany, do you want to help your friend, Heather?
It's a binary digit.
Okay, you copied out from my slide. No, that's not helpful. Okay. Who else here? So the way that we communicate with each other, like I asked a question, right? She told me that I have to go to computer science class to understand bit, right? So there is a language that communication is happening between two systems, right? Here, in this particular instance, is humans, right? So computers have to talk to each other. So they use a system that's called as binary system. So they use they know only two things, okay? Binary, that means they use digits 1 and 0. They don't understand even 2, 3, 4, no. Okay, so that being said, for example, if you have like 8 zeros, the computer will understand that it means it's a 0. For instance, if you have like 8 1 ones, so 8 will replicate that as 255. And something else. So, because the computers only understand two numbers, 1 and 0, that's why it is called as bit, right? And 8 bits is equal to 1 and 5. Now, you might be thinking, what the hell, why should we have to learn about this particular entity in dentistry class, right? In radiology class. That's your next question, right? Why we are not taking any computer science class, no. But since you are evolving, or you have evolved to an extent where you start using computers, right? When you use computers, the images will be displayed on your computers. So you should know how the computers work a little bit. So here, let's take an example here. So how do you describe this part and how do you describe this one? Or you could use this or this as an example. Meena. Taimur.
They're just different shades of gray.
Okay. How is that you are able to tell?
Well, the computer, when we have to like actually
Yes.
code this kind of stuff, they assign different numbers in like the ASCII kind of code.
That's exactly, you're right. So 39, it means this is one grade, right? One level of grade. 65, it means there's another number. So by doing that, because computer is telling those numbers or spitting out those numbers, we are able to differentiate enamel, dentin, pulp, or if there is a restoration. So these are arranged like columns and in rows. So this whole set, one part is called as pixel. Okay. So now, how many of you recently purchased the Apple phones? When I say recently, it could be anywhere between 2 to 3 years. Okay. What is your front end camera megapixel is?
I don't know.
But you bought, you purchased.
Oh, I didn't have choice.
You didn't have choice, okay, forget that. Who else? What does megapixel mean?
10 to the power 6.
Right? So there are like 1 million pixels, right? If they say that 3 megapixels, so that means there are 3 million pixels in that particular camera. That's why you are able to see or capture more images. If they say 12 megapixels, so as they increase the number of pixels, you are going to see much more clearly. So with the sensors that we use, do we think we need to add more number of pixels to get good quality image?
Yes.
Yes, right? So that's why I'm telling this one. So if you have more pixels, then you'll get a good image. So now, how many of you guys use the computer and how many of grayscales that is displayed on your computer? Like you guys are using computer, right? Here, 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 here. How many colors can you see here? Yes, 5 more, yeah?
255.
256.
Okay.
Close, okay. Excellent. Okay. Oh, no. 256, yes. So, the thing is, even if you have more pixels that with the digital sensor, if your computer is not going to display more than 256, if the sales representative comes and tells you, we have 450 grayscales, this is beautiful, it looks better on your computer. You should understand, because your computer is able to display only 256 grayscales, it's useless. Don't spend your money on luxury things, because your computer is not going to be displayed. Yeah, if you upgrade the computer which shows more number of colors, yes, then you can buy. Make sense? That's it.
Thank you.
So, here, there's a few things that I'm going to stress. If the computer says 0, that means it's a black. And 255 is the number that you're going to see white. And you have a range of colors. How many of you purchased HD TV or OLED TVs recently? Ah, you bought house, you bought TV. Okay, that's nice, okay. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How many pixels they have? What is the LED that you're using?
I might have to ask my husband again on the phone. I don't know. A lot. Maybe.
Okay, so in that they have a lot more contrast. So that means they have more black things so that you can display other colors. So if they say that 4 HD, so that means it is 4 times multiplied by 1080p pixels. So that's why they're putting more pixels so you can get a picture. I'm not in sales business of TVs, but I'm telling you that's what is happening. So now, if you, like, in our dental board, if you're looking at this particular thing, so we need to differentiate how the enamel looks, dental looks, or pulp looks, right? When you click on the right-hand side, so you can see the numbers. Each number is unique, and you are able to differentiate enamel, dental, and pulp. So now, all the digital images that we are going to use, when I say digital images, the ones that we are using in our dental clinic is one digital image. Films are analog ones. But even if it's a digital image, it starts as an analog image and it will be converted to digital. To do that, we use something called as sampling and quantitization. So again, with a physics background, Bethany, what do you understand by those images? Let's start with the very first one here. So,
what are the axis labels?
So here is basically we are putting the digital signals in a graph.
Versus time?
Yes. So here, if you look at this particular image and compare, what is the difference? Just looking at the image.
Step size?
Stepwise. Okay, so basically it's called a sampling. So here we are taking too many samples. If you take too many samples, you get a better quality picture. If you take less samples like this one, you'll get a crappy image like this. So what is the downside? If you take too many samples here, the processing time will be more. So our current computers or the digital ones, we have 2 to the power of 16. So that's why it takes a lot more time to pop up on your screen because it has to process so many colors. So 65,000 colors. So when I say colors, it's basically the grayscales. So an important thing that you should memorize, sorry, you don't have choice. You have to memorize this slide. So if I say 1 bit, so basically you are using 2 to the power of 1, so that means there are 2 colors. If you are using the most common one, the computers that you guys are using, they have 2 to the power of 8, so that means you have 256 grayscales. This is your board portion. And this is what we are using at our demo school, 2 to the power of 16, that is 65,000 colors will be displayed. So it takes a little more time to pop up on the screen because it has to process so many colors. So if you have more bits, that means you will get a better picture. So now, some physical characteristics that we have to know about a digital sensor. Something called as resolution, right? How many of you guys have Apple computers here? Mac? Okay, very good. So let's, what's your name?
The one that lifted the computer? That's Robbie?
Robin, yes, yeah. What is your computer's resolution?
I'm not sure.
Oh my God.
It's good.
Other person. You guys don't pay any specifications. You just go there. Okay, Apple released new thing, and we have to go and buy, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. One of the things, yeah, your friend is helping. It's 3,200 something multiplied by 1686 something.
Yeah, I have a retina display too. I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah. Oh. So now, so they said when they released the computers, they added 3 million pixels more. So by adding 3 million pixels, you're getting a better resolution. That's what they're saying, right? So when you look at the Dell computer, they have 768 by something. Whereas the Apple, they'll have, again, Dell is the lower brand. I'm talking about our lower specifications one. Apple always comes with 3,000 something resolution. So now, with the spatial resolution, why do we care about spatial resolution? Well, although you guys purchased computers, it's kind of, I'm feeling bad that you don't understand the difference between spatial resolution. So now let's talk about spatial resolution here. Okay. So what is the difference between this and this?
More pixels.
So, okay. So here it's much more clear, right? Compared to this one. So if you want this kind of picture on your computer, you need to add more pixels. If you add more pixels, you can see fine details. Now, translating that into dentistry. If you want to see a minor fracture, like a hairline fracture, versus like this thick fracture, which one do you want? You want more spatial resolution or less spatial resolution? More, right? So you need to have more spatial resolution. So spatial resolution, basically it helps us to identify very minute details. For instance, if there is an incipient dental caries or not, right? You want to treat that or not. That's a different question. So, but if you want to identify if there is an incipient dental caries or if there is a fracture, then you need to have a good spatial resolution. So now, the spatial resolution is dependent on the pixel size. And we use a measurement when you are checking the lines, the measure as a guideline. That is lines per millimeter or dots per inch. How many of you guys have printers at home? When you print, what is the thing that you choose? You use 300 dpi or 600 dpi? What the hell he is talking, right? Mallory, did you buy the printer?
Yes.
Okay. So now, useful thing, when you print a draft paper, you always use 300 dpi so that you don't use a lot of ink, you can save ink. But if you are printing very fine details, like if you want to send a radiograph to a different office, you may have to print on 600 dpi because you want fine details. So that's where I'm coming. Okay. So we use something called as lines per millimeter and dots per inch. So let's go and talk about those things. So lines per millimeter is like here. You can see there is a black line here and there is a white line here. Black and white. So the number that is more that you are able to distinguish, it's much better. So this is the guideline that we use to see how good is a sensor. It could be a film, or it could be direct digital sensor, or it could be PSP plates. So you might be asking this question, right? Why the hell I'm teaching you this? Because how many of you are going to own your dental offices? Quite a few here, right? So that means as a dentist, every year you have to do this calibration of your X-ray units. This is what you check for. And if you are in state of Ohio, every 3 years state will come and check or do the inspection. And what they do is they check the lines per millimeter. So how many lines we are able to see. And this is the guideline that we use to check the sensors, whether they are working properly or you have to discard them. Okay? Remember I told you earlier, in Ohio there are only 3 radiologists. I can't come to each and every office to look. You have to be on your own. So the bottom line is, if you see a high lines per millimeter, it is good, or you can see better images. So these are some things, like film. If you are using film-based one, you can see there are 20 lines per millimeter, right? And solid state, that's what we are using currently in our dental school. If you look, it ranges from 8 to 18. And if you are using PSP plates or phosphor plates, it's only 5 to 6. So the question is, do we need to have more lines per millimeter or not? Or do we need really to check what we do in day-to-day practices? What do you understand by contrast resolution? So we talked about spatial resolution. Now we are going to talk about contrast resolution. What do you understand by contrast? Yes, I know.
The ability to differentiate different shades of gray.
Yes. So why do you think that is critical in our dentistry?
We can see more details.
Like?
like the line between enamel and dentin,
Okay, very good.
or the background in enamel.
Yes. So we need to have a good contrast resolution. So remember, caries or dental caries is a contrast-based task. So that means you need to have a very, very good contrast resolution when you're looking for digital sensors. You guys want to take a break?
Yes.
I can see the time here. We should be able to finish this one a little early. So when we talk about digital detectors or sensors, basically there are three types we use in dentistry. One is called as solid state or direct ones. There is something called as indirect digital sensors. So when I say direct, is you expose radiation to the sensor and the image will be popped up on the monitor. So that's called as direct one. Indirect is you expose radiation to that sensor and you have to put it in the scanner, and then scanner will work through its process, and there is a 3-minute delay. It will be popping up on your screens or monitors. So that's the indirect. So example here is indirect is phosphor plates. No. This one is direct one. We have two things. One is CCD and CMOS. The latest one is flat panel detectors. And again, here there are two other things like wired or wireless. We'll talk in detail. So if you break apart your direct digital sensors, which is worth like anywhere between $10,000 to $13,000, this is what you're going to see. Okay, you've got a front housing, and there is a scintillator screen that we use. Why do we use scintillator screen? That scintillator screen is basically to help to absorb the radiation, and they convert X-rays into light, so that you give less radiation and a lot more, it will be converted into light, and then they'll take up to produce an image. And there is a CMOS chip. CMOS is basically used in cameras. It has been they have been using to take images. So now they got the technology and they have started using for digital imaging as well. So if you buy a camera, in that camera it will be CMOS chip. Again, not going into too many details, what is going to happen is when the X-ray is going to hit, so you have to know about two things like conduction band and valence band. So when the X-ray is going to hit, it is going to remove the electrons. So that's called as electron pair hole. And that procedure is called as photoelectric. We talked about photoelectric in earlier instance, but that was dealing with the patient, right? Remember? There are 4 types of interactions that are happening. You guys remember? Sam, do you remember? No? So that's why I keep a comprehensive exam. So, photoelectric is the effect that is happening on the sensor end. So now, what is the basic difference between the CCD and CMOS is pretty much like they have similar parts and everything, only the charge that is being transferred is slightly different. In CCD, it's called as something called as bucket brigade. You guys are familiar with that? So this is the best example I could get. So if there is a fire, something is happening, so each person will transfer that bucket of water and they'll put it in pail or something like that, or if there is fire, they'll put it there. So transferring from one person to the other person, that's exactly what is happening in case of CCD. Whereas in CMOS, there are 2 pixels like this one, and the charge is being collected from each pixel or 2 pixels, and then that is being transferred. So in CCD, bucket brigade is the system, whereas in CMOS, it's not. That's the basic difference. It may be your board question, so please read. So you guys are familiar with this, right? So we have X-ray unit here. There is a sensor here. It's from Sirona pan. If you expose radiation and you get the image. This is pretty much what is happening with the CCD intra or wire. Schick is another company. Here you can see there is no wire. So these are wireless ones, so you can place in the patient's mouth. What is the problem with the wireless one? Why is that we are using wired one only, not wireless? Yes, Sam?
They give you better contrast.
Better contrast?
Wired.
With the wire, okay. That's not the right answer, so we'll yes. What's your name? Darby, okay.
Wait, did you drop it? Did you do
That's a good thing, okay. Is it sitting? That's right.
You've introduced another step there. Now what happens is not only is the receptor taking in X-rays, but now the receptor has to transmit that image, I presume, by Wi-Fi technology. But it's gonna have to hit that.
He's talking my language now. Okay, good.
But you're gonna have to hit that sensor, so what was a one-step process now becomes a 2-step process.
So what could be the potential problem? Like, as a dentist, why should we be concerned? Again, whatever you're saying is right, but I'm looking for something else.
Well, ultimately, you could affect the image quality, I guess.
So basically, because you're going to use wireless things, so that means you need to load up with more chips, more electronics, so it becomes much more bulkier. So bulkier or heavy in the patient's mouth. So if they're going to place like this, it will be so heavy, the patient tolerance will be very, very low. So that's why they are not very successful in the market. So one of the reasons we are using wired is, yes, you guys mentioned is potential drop, yes, Wi-Fi problems, electronics, and then they are really heavy in the patient's mouth. And of course, Wi-Fi, all those Bluetooth problems. So again, why is that I'm stressing? When you purchase or when you are going to purchase in your future practices, rather than believing your sales representative, please look at some signs and purchase. That's why I'm spending a lot of time. Yeah. Again, sales guys are doing their job, I'm doing my own job. Yeah. Yes?
Do you have to charge it?
Yes, of course. Yes.
How often?
Good question. I am not familiar how often because we never looked at that because of other problems. Even we did not consider at this level school. Yeah. So you may have seen this particular image, right? So if you look at this particular thing, so here the X-rays are coming, it's going hitting the sensor. How many of you guys have dental offices, or your mom's dad or some relative is having dental office with CBCD machine? So again, when you are planning or intending to buy a CBCD machine, one thing that you have to check is whether you want to have a flat panel, sensor or image intensifier, which we did not discuss really. If you are going to buy a machine with image intensifier, an example would be is Sirona machine. Okay, it's huge, it's bulky. One of the example, like if you go to Craniofacial Imaging Center upstairs, it has got a C arm that's huge. The footprint is very, very long. We have dental offices like this, right? And if you're going to put a huge machine, it's not going to work for us. So that's footprint is larger for image intensifiers. And with the flat panel, it's sleek. It's easier to install. Okay. Now, what is the downside of using the flat panel versus image intensifier? Right? Flat panels, they incorporate more pixels. So what does that tell you? If you are using more pixels, clear image. What is the downside of that? If you are getting a clear image,
More processing time.
more processing time, okay? Prior to that, I want one more step before that.
Longer to do it.
What is happening to the X-ray source? Okay, let me rephrase that question, okay? Do you have to give more radiation or less radiation if you are using flat panel detectors?
More radiation.
More radiation, why?
You need more photons to get there.
Yes, you guys are right. There is nothing to draw here, okay? Maybe I can try. Oh, the other way around. Yeah, I think that should be fine. Oh, stop. Okay, imagine this is the size of a pixel, right? Compared to the size of the pixel here. So you have to give more radiation for this or this. Why?
It's a smaller pixel. You need
Yes,
more
because it's a
photons.
smaller pixel, so that means the absorption will be a little less, so you have to give more radiation. The downside is if you're using flat panel detectors, so that means you have to give more radiation to the patient to get crispier image. The analogy that I would like to use here is like Ferrari versus Prius. Right? Ferrari versus Prius. Toyota Prius. Both of them, they do the job, right? Taking from point A to point B, they drive, and we can reach from point A to point B. Why do some people prefer Ferrari versus Prius? Or Tesla, let's say Tesla. I can't use that word, so okay. So basically, performance, right? So if you want use performance, or if you want to enjoy the ride, then you are going to go with Ferrari, right? If you are very conservative, if you think about nature, if you want to have less carbon footprint, then you go with Tesla, right? So you have to choose your battles. So which one do you want? The other way of saying that is, if you're going to practice endo only, then you have to go with flat panel ones because there may be fractures of root, right? You need to see the fine details where there is you need to have spatial resolution, higher spatial resolution. But if you are going to practice like ortho or oral surgery, then you don't need fine details. Then you can go with Prius kind of machine, right? Because you are not looking at fine details. You are looking at major pathologies, like from where to where it is. So some machines, they have everything these days. What I mean by that is, you can take one panoramic like this machine, it can take PAN, it can take CBCT, it can take SEF. So one brand that is Ciron, Orthophos. Okay. Again, I do not have any financial interest in any of those companies. But these are the helpful things that you have to consider when you purchase. Yeah, this is here is a very good example. You can see this is image intensifier example versus again here is an image intensifier. That machine you can take all the three like PAN, SEF, and CBCT on top. Now you get the point, right? So this is image intensifier, flat panel. So this is the part I'm talking about. It's a huge. And I would like to spend little time on phosphoplates. Personally, if you ask me, I like this phosphoplates. Although it takes like 3 minutes extra for processing time to pop up. The reason I like this is one, it is 100% reusable. Okay? Same size as film, and flexibility on top of it. So, how many of you guys worked with film? Okay. How many of you guys worked only with the digital sensors? Okay. How many of you worked with phosphoplates? Okay. Phosphoplates are like pretty much similar to film, so they are a little moldable, and each plate will cost like $20, $50. So when you buy it in bulk, it will be much more cheaper. You can use one plate or phosphoplate, like this one. These are the phosphoplates. At least for 1,000 retakes. Even if you lose, you're not going to lose a lot of money because $20, right? Compared to direct digital sensors that we have, if somebody steals, they're losing $10,000. Yes.
I thought any flexibility would be bad because then any flexibility would create a distortion in the image.
Yes, in general, you are absolutely right. There are certain circumstances, like if the patient is having a chloride.
So we'll still get distortion, but it's the only way we can get an image.
Yes.
Would it be preferable in the case of toric to have like something flexible that's slightly distorted, or to just have it be farther, have the receptor be farther away from the source?
So if you're looking for, like, depending on your diagnostic test, I would say you have to choose. Okay, if you're looking for any periapical pathology, and if you're not able to see with direct digital sensor, because you cannot bend it, then it's useless. But if you are only checking for overall like a 6 months recall, you know that last 6 months you check, now nothing major could have happened, so you can go with the direct digital sensors. Make sense? Yes. Again, the question is, like somebody asks, which car is the best car? Right? Ferrari or Prius? Or Tesla, sorry. Let's go with Tesla. You guys are more high-tech people, so I have to keep up with my standards as well. So, this is exactly what is going to happen. Again, on your boards, they will ask these questions. So please read about this, although we don't use. I'm trying to get onto the exam board and take out all these non-crappy exam questions, like 50-year-old questions. Why do we use films? Who's using films these days, right? One day I'll be on exam and take out all those nonsense questions, hopefully. Okay, back to our, so this is where the imaging plate, so X-rays are being sent and the image is captured. It's called as latent image. So you can't see with your naked eye. Then what you do is you put it in a laser scanner, like this one. And then this scanner or the light, like it's called as PSP plate, right? Photo stimulable phosphor plates. So light will remove those things and you'll get an image. That's the whole process. Again, it's coated with this is very, very, very important. Please make sure that you understand, and if you have to memorize, please memorize. This is your board question again. European dope, barium, fluorohalide, that's coated with that. Sorry, I can't help. So you have to memorize this. So this is where it is coated with. And again, as the X-rays are being emitted from here, the electrons are being transferred to the F center. That is what is basically happening. And then the electron sits here, and you are going to release the light, and this will go back to this stage. That's the whole process, or in a nutshell, you know. So basically, X-rays come, they remove the electron, and it will go and sit in the F center. And when you release the light, it will be removed from the F center, and it goes back to the valence spectrum. So please make sure that some of the machines, when you put in the scanner, the older machines, there is a latent image or the image that is still present. So you have to expose it to the light to take out or clear the image before you take one more image. Make sense? No? So, you take one image and you put in the scanner, and even after you remove from the scanner, if you take one more image without clearing, then there will be double images because you got the previous image and the current image, so there will be overlap. So you have to clear or make sure that it is clear, so you have to keep it on light for 20 minutes so that it will clear. Now with the modern machines, automatically from a scanner, that is being deleted. So you have to check which machine you are looking, whether it is removing the latent image or not. Okay?
How long did you say we have to explain?
20 minutes.
40?
20 minutes. And remember, if you are going to use PSP plates in your dental offices, you can keep it open for only 30 minutes. That's the most. After that, there will be degradation of the image. You have to run it in the scanner. Because these are light sensitive ones, even with this light, the image will degrade for a period of time. So basically, in a nutshell, like you acquire, you put it in scanner, you view the image, you erase, and put it in protective barrier to reuse. So this is where you are going to place multiple images for scanning purposes. If somebody is interested, we do have a scanner. You can talk to Sue, she'll show you one sample, how it works. So when you compare with 3 different image acquiring sensors, here like film, you acquire clean and pack and color. So here, with the direct digital sensors, you are basically taking an image and reusing continuously. Whereas with the PSP plates, you have to do an extra step scanner and erase and repack. That's one more in a nutshell. Pros and cons. The bottom line is these are cheap and flexible. Personally, I like this. One thing that I wanted to show or share is how you can enhance your images after you acquire. Unfortunately, that is not getting connected to the patch systems. But I'm going to just tell you few features that you can enhance after you get an image, right? So how many of you guys have iPhone XR? X Max? Okay, I'm not going to.
Okay.
Yes. So when you take a picture, you have a portrait mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what exactly it does? And there is a studio mode. Have you used that?
I've used portrait mode.
You use portrait mode, okay. Have you used studio mode?
I don't know what that is.
Oh my God, you guys don't make use of the features also. Okay, have you used panorama?
Yeah.
How many pixels it has got? 63. Okay, so after you guys take a picture, you can enhance the image quality. So, like you have on iPhone, you have portrait mode, studio mode, okay? You can take the pictures, that is pre-processing, right? Before you take the pictures. You can do after you take the pictures, right? Yes, check.
I don't know what studio mode is. I don't have that.
If it is XR,
Yeah. X-Max.
yeah, it should be there. Camera, maybe after the class I'll show you. So some useful tools. You can change the contrast, you can change the brightness, you can change the gamma. You can zoom in, zoom out. We have rulers. That means we can measure the length. You can use filters. That's exactly what I wanted to show, but my laptop is not working. So we have to go with the boring pictures here, or lectures. So what is the difference between this and this? This is better, right, compared to this one. So this is after you acquire an image, you could change. So here, there are few things like gamma, brightness, contrast, you can change depending on the software that you have. So this is called as post-processing. And my physics students' favorite. What does the center picture will indicate?
Which of those 256 colors is most represented by percentage, be my guess?
Yeah, so here it's completely white, here it's completely black. So if you have this kind of curve, okay, like a bell curve, it's a nice image that you can see. So if this graph is representing on this side, that means the image is really darker. You can use the histogram as your guideline to change the image processing. This is post-processing. Make sense? So you could bring this graph to this side and make image a little more light. So you can use histogram for your processing. So for example, like here, we have three different things, right? So with the brightness, one, this is completely onto the right side. Remember, this is 0 and 256 was whiter. So if it's on this side, it looks white, right? And this is on the other side of the spectrum, a little more darker. So you can adjust those things using the histogram basically. So if I ask you, what is the use of histogram? You can use that histogram to change the characteristics of the image. So you can make it lighter or you can make it darker. So ideally, we want bell-shaped curve. So same thing we can do with the contrast, right? So again, remember, we need to have a bell-shaped nice curve. You guys are familiar with bell-shaped curve, right? I don't have to go into the details. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, good. That saves a lot of time. Again, gamma, the best thing that you have to adjust is gamma. If you don't want to mess with brightness, contrast, then use only gamma. You can do a lot of things with the gamma. So again, if it's on this side, remember, it's darker. If the graph is on this side, it's light. Ideally, we need to have bell shape.
What is this adjusting to? Brightness?
Yes, so for example, okay, so here is 0, the grayscales, and here is 255 or 256, that's the number. So if you're looking at this graph, graphically if you draw, if it's closer to the 0, so that means the image looks pretty dark or black. If it is on completely onto the towards 255 side, then it looks lighter. Using these as guidelines, you can change the image. So you can pull the histogram and you can make adjustments. This is called post-processing.
But how is this different than light adjustments?
So, okay. So, light, okay, so contrast and brightness. Remember, brightness is like you're making it more white completely. Whereas contrast, you're giving little shades of gray, multiple of those. Gamma, it does everything. So ultimately, the gamma thing is what is required. To give you an example, if you look at the images, if you get a chance, before 2014, they never adjusted gamma. So they were struggling with how can we make images prettier. One of the major changes that I made after coming to this dental school is gamma adjustment. Now you can see our images are being show cast at different places that we are getting beautiful images. Other than that, what I showed picture of the day. No, there are some crappy images, of course. But overall, we have drastically improved with just changing gamma.
Can we do that on the competency?
Yes, of course you can do. Again, that's what I wanted to show with my laptop. It's not working, unfortunately. Maybe next time. Or if you come and ask me in the lab, I can show you. It is your responsibility to remind me. Okay? Sarah or Sarah, it's your responsibility to remind me in the lab. Okay. So there are other toys that we can use, right? Like emojis, you know, FaceTime. You can do lots of things, right? Similar to that, we can do with our digital image. So you can make it, the things that are appearing white as darker, and vice versa. So here, if you want to check, for example, in general, pulp will appear like black, right? But here it's white. So we have changed, we have done inversion. In what case this might be helpful? For example, if you are uncertain if there is a class 2 cavity or not for your Bode's lesion, right? Then what do? You took 50 radiographs. Still you are uncertain. What do? You use inversion tool here. Because here, if dental caries is black, it will appear white. So could be a class 2 cavity here. You could use inversion as a tool to check or reconfirm the findings. And this is color inversions, embossing. Again, these are not helpful or diagnostic enough at this point. A company by something from New Zealand, they are working on pseudo colors recently. They are telling that we can identify dental caries or other things. But they are not yet at the stage where we can identify. It's still, they're working on it, yes.
So you said caries are going to be black, how black would it be?
Again, depending on how much of enamel is lost.
So would it be darker than this black?
Again, how much of enamel has been lost. So, dental caries is nothing but there is a loss of mineralization, right? So at least there should have been 40% of decalcification should have happened on the enamel to appear on the radiograph. if that's what you're looking for.
No, I'm just curious, like how dark is that dark to me?
I have multiple examples. Come to my office, I'll show you, okay? I wish this was working, no? I could have shown you. So again, the bottom line is for our diagnostic purposes. Any system is good. PSP plates are also good because all we need is 5 to 6 lines per millimeter. And remember, our eyes can only see 60 degrees of shapes, right? And in clinic, you can see up to 30 only in an ideal situation because you've got lights, everything, we can see beyond that. So our eyes can see in a normal condition 60, in a clinical conditions 30. And when you look everything there, all we need is anything to identify dental caries is 5 or 6 lines per millimeter. That's enough for our diagnostic purposes. So if a representative comes and says to you that we've got 30 lines per millimeter, then what you should be doing? Should you believe him or science? Believe sales representative so that you can lose more money, right? Okay, so when they say here like 15 micro or 30 lines per millimeter, this is how you are going to calculate. This is very, very important slide, okay? In 1 micron there is 1000 microns is equal to 1 millimeter. So if they say that there are 15 microns in a sensor, so you divide the 1000 divided by 15, you'll get 66 lines per millimeter. And that's equivalent to 1 line per is like 1 black, 1 white, right? So you divide that 66 divided by 2 is 33 lines per millimeter. There is a company that is selling, I'm not going to name, they said that we have 30 lines per millimeter. So this is a theoretical resolution of 30 lines per millimeter. So do we really need 30 lines per millimeter to see our dental caries? That's my question to you guys. So think and don't get fooled by sales reps. Questions? Yes?
So if 40% of the enamel is, I don't know, degraded or whatever by the carie, does that mean that the lesion in real life is actually larger than what the radiograph shows?
Yes. So at least you need to see 40% of decalcification should have happened to appear on radiograph. So in reality, it could be much more. Make sense? Yes.
I'm not sure I understand the bucket per grade metaphor. Could you go over CCD and CMOS?
So basically, so say for example, if I give this pen to Julie and I'll ask to transfer it to you. So this is basically, she's not getting up from here, so passing on, that is called as bucket brigade.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what's the difference between CCD and CMOS?
So the basic difference is like this CCD, the transfer of charged particles is by bucket brigade.
Okay.
In CMOS, like I'll come and give the pen to you directly, rather than intermediates. So Julia will come and give it to you. So everywhere one place the charge is collected. Make sense? Any other questions? Okay. Yes.
Just to add on to that, so that place that you're referring to, what is that individual unit that you're talking about? That transfers the charge?
The transferring of charge from each pixel is through the mechanism transferring is called as bucket brigade. Yeah, basically each pixel will pick and they transfer that number to the computer.
Okay.
And the computer will display those numbers.
Okay.
Okay, I believe that's all. And I'll see you next week.